The imaging window for Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS from Mars closed precisely 96 hours ago. Aboard the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, a silent command sequence executed flawlessly, pivoting the 1.5-ton spacecraft in the cold vacuum. Its primary instrument, the high-resolution imaging science experiment, a 132-pound telescopic eye of beryllium and specialized glass, fixed its gaze on a specific point in the star-dusted darkness. Far below, on the red plains of Mars, the rovers Perseverance and Curiosity were likely unaware, their own missions continuing under a sky that now held a profound secret. For a few precious hours, MRO, along with the European Space Agency's Mars Express, China's Tianwen-1 orbiter, and the UAE's Hope probe, had the perfect vantage point. The expected torrent of data, a cascade of pixels representing one of the most anticipated cometary encounters in modern history, was scheduled for downlink through the Deep Space Network. The teams at Goldstone, at Madrid, at Canberra were waiting, but the torrent never came. The digital pipeline, a conduit of discovery stretching over 100 million kilometers, simply went dark. And then came the silence. 4 days of absolute, coordinated, deafening silence from the world's leading space exploration agencies. The official reason provided by NASA, trickling out through a brief update on a subpage of their website, is a familiar one: a government shutdown. A lapse in federal funding, we are told, has temporarily halted all non-essential operations, including the processing and release of new scientific data. But this is not an isolated incident of unfortunate timing. This is a meticulously repeated pattern. It is the second time in less than a decade that a scientifically vital, high-interest comet, imaged from the unique orbital perspective of Mars, has had its entire data set suppressed under this exact same, remarkably convenient excuse. A pattern is not just emerging, it has been deliberately established. Here is what we know for certain, based on publicly available mission schedules logged weeks in advance. The observation was planned for years. The spacecraft were in their perfect calculated positions. The commands were uploaded and confirmed. The images were taken. The photons from that mysterious object traveled millions of kilometers, were collected by the world's most advanced remote sensors, and converted into digital information. And then, somewhere between the onboard memory of 4 separate spacecraft and the public archives on Earth, they vanished. Over the course of our investigation tonight, we will dismantle this official narrative piece by piece, treating it not as an explanation, but as an obstruction. We will forensically reconstruct the timeline of events, revealing the precise moments where scheduled communication ceased and the synchronized institutional contradictions began. We will look back into the recent past and examine the ghost of a previous comet, an object whose critical Mars data remains classified under identical circumstances, creating a precedent that defies all statistical probability. We will analyze the breathtaking technical specifications of the instruments involved, showing you not just what they were capable of seeing, but what the mission planners were specifically looking for on that distant icy nucleus. And we will calculate the staggering astronomical improbability of 4 global space agencies, including fierce geopolitical rivals, all suffering a simultaneous, silent, and politically convenient failure. The truth is not contained in the sparse, carefully worded statements they have released to the public. The truth is in the data they are so clearly and so desperately attempting to conceal from us. The silence is not an absence of information. It is the information itself. The object at the heart of this deepening mystery is designated C-2025-02, Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS. Discovered by the Purple Mountain Observatory in China, and later confirmed by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, a planetary defense project, it was immediately flagged as an object of immense scientific interest. Its trajectory is highly unusual, a retrograde orbit inclined at a steep 138 degrees to the ecliptic plane, the flat disk on which most planets and asteroids in our solar system travel. It is moving against the current, a celestial salmon swimming upstream against the flow of the solar system. This suggests an origin in the most distant, most ancient, and most mysterious part of our solar system, the Oort cloud, a theoretical sphere of icy bodies encasing our sun at a distance of nearly a light-year. Tsuchinshan-ATLAS is a pristine relic from the birth of our solar system, and its path was calculated to bring it within 0.15 astronomical units of Mars, a cosmic near-miss of just over 22 million kilometers. This flyby was not just a curiosity, it was a golden, unmissable opportunity. From Earth, our view of comets is frustratingly limited. We see the bright, sun-facing side, always shrouded in a glowing ethereal coma of gas and dust that obscures the solid nucleus within. But from the vantage point of Mars, as the comet passed by, our orbiters could achieve what optical scientists call a high phase angle. It is an effect akin to seeing a person standing in front of a bright sunset. You see them in silhouette, their shape and form defined with perfect clarity against the light behind them. The orbiters could see the comet's dark side, its hidden hemisphere, with its terrain thrown into sharp relief by the slant of the distant sun. It was a unique chance to map the surface in 3 dimensions, to identify the specific vents and geological fissures spewing gas into space, and to resolve the solid nucleus with a clarity that borders on science fiction. The theoretical ground resolution from the HiRISE camera aboard the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was projected to be just 2 meters per pixel. To put that in perspective, the James Webb Space Telescope, for all its power, would see this comet's nucleus as little more than a tiny, blurry dot of light. HiRISE, from its privileged position, could discern features the size of a small car. Individual boulders, deep cracks in the ice, unusual geological formations, or perhaps something far less natural. This was a coordinated, multinational campaign, the culmination of years of planning and orbital mechanics calculations. Orbital adjustments were made to all 4 spacecraft months in advance. New software patches were uploaded to optimize the tracking of a fast-moving, non-planetary object. The world's most sophisticated interplanetary probes were aimed at a single, fleeting target. NASA, the European Space Agency, the China National Space Administration, and the UAE Space Agency had all confirmed their participation in joint teleconferences and published their observation schedules. They were rivals on Earth, competing for national prestige and technological dominance. But in the pure pursuit of cosmic science, they presented a united front. A front that 4 days ago instantly became a unified wall of silence. The expected press releases were quietly deleted from the schedules. The public data portals remained empty, displaying only old images of Martian sand dunes. The principal investigators for the missions, the very scientists who conceived of these observations, have gone completely quiet, their university email accounts returning automated replies, their social media feeds dormant. The coordinated nature of this blackout is the element that breaks the official story. A funding issue within the United States government has absolutely no bearing on the operational budget of the European Space Agency in Darmstadt, Germany. It does not halt the activities of the China National Space Administration in Beijing, nor does it affect the data pipeline from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in Dubai. Yet all 4 of these powerful independent organizations acted in perfect, unspoken, and immediate unison. They released no images. They would not even confirm or deny a successful observation had taken place. They offered only vague, conflicting statements about data calibration delays and downlink prioritization issues before NASA finally provided the overarching shutdown excuse, an excuse the other agencies have implicitly legitimized through their continued complicit silence. This leads us to the central, unavoidable question that must be asked. What could they have possibly seen in those few hours of observation that would require such an immediate, internationally coordinated lockdown of all information? What resides in those missing terabytes of image data that could be so paradigm-shifting, so potentially disruptive, that it justifies breaking the most fundamental promise of these publicly funded missions, the promise of shared discovery and open knowledge? The government shutdown is not the reason, it is the cover story. The real story is written in the missing ones and zeros, currently locked away on a secure server at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and almost certainly mirrored in classified archives in Beijing, Cologne, and Dubai. And it is a story that has a precedent, a chilling echo of a previous event. It begins with another traveler from the dark, a comet known as 3I/ATLAS, whose secrets, captured from Mars, also remain buried under the very same political pretext, its data sealed away from public and scientific scrutiny alike. Coincidence is a common occurrence in the vast and chaotic theater of the cosmos. But coordinated, repeated, and politically convenient coincidence at this level is statistically indistinguishable from a prearranged protocol. The silence itself is the evidence. It is a signal, a loud, clear admission that whatever Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS revealed as it sped past the red planet, it was something we were never, ever meant to see. To understand the true gravity of the missing data, we must first understand the celestial mechanics that made this observation a once-in-a-generation event. It wasn't just a matter of pointing a telescope at a passing comet. It was about a perfect, fleeting alignment of 4 planets, a sun, and a mysterious interstellar visitor, creating a geometric window that may not open again for centuries. At the heart of it all is Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS's highly unusual trajectory. Most objects in our solar system, planets, asteroids, the vast majority of comets, orbit the Sun in a relatively flat plane, known as the ecliptic. They all travel in the same direction, a counterclockwise flow when viewed from above the Sun's north pole. But Tsuchinshan-ATLAS is different. It is on a retrograde orbit, with an inclination of 138 degrees. Imagine our solar system is a vast spinning vinyl record. The planets are like tiny specks of dust moving in the grooves, all in the same direction. This comet is like a particle thrown onto that record from above, spinning in the opposite direction and cutting down through the record at a steep angle. It is an outsider, a traveler moving against the established cosmic traffic. This alone makes it a priority target for study, as such orbits are often hallmarks of objects originating from the Oort cloud, the most distant and least understood region of our solar system. This strange path brought the comet on a trajectory that intersected the orbital plane of Mars at a very specific time and place. On September 17, 2025, the comet passed within 0.15 astronomical units of the red planet. That's approximately 22.4 million kilometers. While that may sound like a vast distance, in astronomical terms, it is a remarkably close pass, especially for our fleet of advanced scientific orbiters already positioned at Mars. This proximity was the first critical element, but the second and far more important element was the geometry of the encounter. It's all about something called the phase angle. The phase angle is simply the angle between the light source, in this case the sun, the object being observed, and the observer. From our vantage point on Earth, we almost always see comets at a low phase angle. The sun is behind us, illuminating the face of the comet pointing towards us. This is why comets appear as bright, fuzzy blobs. We are seeing the sunlight reflect off the vast cloud of gas and dust, the coma that surrounds the nucleus. The nucleus itself, the solid body of ice and rock at the center, is almost completely obscured by its own brilliant exhaust. It's like trying to see the exact shape of a car's headlight bulb while it's switched on and pointing directly at you. You see the glare, not the filament. But from Mars, during this specific flyby, the geometry was perfect. For a brief period, the Martian orbiters were positioned almost directly between the Sun and the comet. This created an extremely high phase angle, close to 180 degrees. In this configuration, the Sun was behind the comet from the orbiter's perspective. The coma, the cloud of gas, would still glow, but it would be a translucent halo. The nucleus, however, would be seen in perfect silhouette, a dark, solid shape outlined against the Sun's distant light, and the forward scattered glow of its own dust. More importantly, this angle of illumination throws the surface topography into extreme relief. Every crater, every cliff, every fissure on the comet's dark side would be starkly defined by shadow, creating a three-dimensional map of its hidden terrain. This was the mission's primary objective: to use this unique lighting condition to pinpoint the exact sources of the outgassing jets. These jets, explosive plumes of sublimating ice and dust, are the engines that drive a comet's activity and create its tail. Seeing precisely where they erupt from the nucleus is the holy grail of cometary science. It would tell us about the internal structure of the nucleus, its composition, and its rotation. The data would have allowed scientists to create a detailed map of these active regions, something that has only been crudely accomplished for a handful of comets visited by dedicated deep space probes. Tsuchinshan-ATLAS was offering up these secrets for free to the instruments we already had waiting. This wasn't just a passive observation. It was a meticulously planned, multi-agency campaign designed to exploit this perfect orbital alignment. The star of this campaign was the high-resolution imaging science experiment, the HiRISE camera, aboard NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. HiRISE is not a wide-angle camera for taking scenic pictures of the Martian landscape. It is a reflecting telescope with a half-meter primary mirror, an instrument of breathtaking power and precision designed for extreme close-ups. At its predicted distance from the comet, the mission planners at the University of Arizona and JPL calculated that HiRISE could achieve a resolution of just 2 meters per pixel. Let's pause to fully absorb what that number means. The most powerful ground-based and space telescopes on Earth, including the new generation of extremely large telescopes, would struggle to resolve the comet's nucleus as anything more than a few pixels across. 2 meters per pixel means that if there were an object the size of a school bus on the surface of that comet nucleus, HiRISE would have rendered it as a distinct shape, several pixels in size. It could distinguish between a large boulder and a deep crevice. This is a resolution at least 50 times better than any observation possible from Earth. It is a level of detail that could, without ambiguity, reveal features that are not geological. It could confirm the texture of the surface, measure the size of individual ice blocks, and crucially, identify if any of the outgassing jets were originating from points that seemed unnaturally symmetrical or controlled. The scientific potential was incalculable, and it was not just NASA. The European Space Agency's Mars Express, with its high-resolution stereo camera, was tasked with providing crucial color and contextual data. China's Tianwen-1 orbiter, equipped with its own high-resolution camera, would provide another slightly different angle, allowing for stereoscopic analysis. The UAE's HOPE probe would use its ultraviolet spectrometer to analyze the chemical composition of the gases in the coma with unprecedented detail, as its structure was being revealed by the other instruments. It was a coordinated symphony of observation, with each instrument playing a specific, irreplaceable part. The plan was robust. The orbital mechanics were certain. The spacecraft were healthy and in position. The commands were sent, and their execution was confirmed by telemetry. For those few hours on September 17th, this international fleet of robotic explorers stared into the dark and recorded what they saw. They captured data that would have filled textbooks, data that was designed to answer fundamental questions about the formation of our solar system. The fact that this specific data, captured during a moment of perfect, predictable, and long-awaited celestial alignment, is the data that has been uniformly and completely suppressed, is not an accident. It is a decision. They got the look they wanted. They achieved the impossible resolution. And what they saw on that dark side of a comet's nucleus was apparently something that necessitated an immediate, total, and international blackout. The perfect alignment provided the perfect opportunity, not just for discovery, but for seeing something that was never intended to be seen. The coordinated silence surrounding Tsuchinshan-ATLAS is deeply suspicious on its own. But when placed in its historical context, it transforms from a mere anomaly into a clear, repeating pattern of institutional behavior. This is not the first time this has happened. To understand what is occurring now, we must rewind the clock to the year 2020 and examine the strange case of another comet, another Mars observation, and another conveniently timed government shutdown. The object was designated 3I/Atlas, a comet discovered in December 2019, also by the Atlas Survey in Hawaii. The I in its designation stood for interstellar, making it only the second such object ever detected passing through our solar system, after the infamous Oumuamua. Its trajectory was hyperbolic, a path that clearly indicated it was not gravitationally bound to our sun. It was a visitor from another star system, a priceless sample of alien material delivered to our doorstep. 3I/Atlas was on a path that would take it deep inside the orbit of Mercury, causing it to heat rapidly and begin to disintegrate. By April 2020, ground-based telescopes observed it breaking apart into multiple fragments, an event of immense scientific interest. As luck would have it, its trajectory also carried it relatively close to Mars, providing an almost identical observational opportunity to the one we just witnessed with Tsuchinshan-ATLAS. The fleet of Martian orbiters, including the still operational Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter with its powerful HiRISE camera, was perfectly positioned to get a high-resolution look at the fragmentation process. Planetary scientists were ecstatic. This was a chance to see up close how an interstellar object behaves under extreme thermal stress, to resolve the individual fragments as they broke apart, and to analyze their composition. The observation sequences were planned and uploaded. The flyby occurred in May 2020, and then the data pipeline went quiet. The expected images never appeared in the public archives. When inquiries were made, the official explanation provided by NASA was that a government shutdown had delayed the data processing and release. Let's examine the parallels, because they are mathematically improbable. First, the object of interest. In both cases, we have a scientifically invaluable comet, one confirmed interstellar, the other a likely pristine Oort cloud object on a rare retrograde orbit. These are not routine run-of-the-mill comets. They are premier targets for observation, the kind of events that define scientific careers. Second, the observation platform. In both instances, the critical suppressed data was gathered by the fleet of orbiters at Mars, with the HiRISE camera on MRO being the key instrument capable of the highest resolution imaging. Not from Hubble, not from ground telescopes. Specifically from Mars. This is a crucial recurring detail. The unique vantage point offered by the red planet is the common denominator in both cases of data suppression. Third, and most damningly, the official excuse. In May 2020, NASA cited a government funding lapse as the reason for withholding the 3I/ATLAS data. In September 2025, they have deployed the exact same reason for withholding the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS data. Two separate high-priority cometary events, separated by over 5 years, both observed from Mars. Both have their data embargoed using the identical, politically convenient explanation. To appreciate the improbability, we must look at the official statements themselves. We have archived the press release from 2020 regarding 3I/ATLAS. It stated, "Due to a temporary lapse in appropriations, the processing of new observational data from non-essential mission assets has been paused. Data downlink continues, but public release and analysis will be delayed until normal operations resume." Now, compare this to the statement released just days ago about Tsuchinshan-ATLAS. As a result of the current government shutdown, processing and public release of new scientific data from Mars orbital assets are temporarily suspended. Automated data downlink remains active but will be held for processing pending the resumption of full funding. The phrasing is nearly identical. The structure is the same. Acknowledge the data exists on a server somewhere, blame a funding lapse for the delay, and provide no estimated date for its release. The data from 3I/ATLAS, by the way, was never released. After the shutdown in 2020 ended, NASA issued a brief follow-up stating that the observation had been unsuccessful due to pointing errors, a claim that many in the planetary science community found dubious, given the MRO's proven track record of precision targeting. No raw data was ever provided to substantiate this claim of failure. It was simply declared a loss, and the scientific community was told to move on. This establishes a clear, undeniable pattern of behavior. It is a protocol. When a specific type of celestial object is observed from a specific planet, a specific institutional response is triggered. The government shutdown is not a cause, it is a tool. a pre-planned smokescreen to be deployed when needed. Why would such a protocol exist? What are the common characteristics of 3I/ATLAS and Tsuchinshan-ATLAS that would warrant such extreme measures? Both are from the outer darkness of the solar system or beyond. Both were on trajectories that offered the Mars orbiters a unique high phase angle view, allowing them to see the object's unilluminated side in sharp detail. And in both cases, the HiRISE camera was capable of resolving features on the nucleus that were impossibly small, features that could potentially betray a non-natural origin or behavior. The pattern suggests that what the agencies are trying to suppress is not a natural phenomenon. Natural phenomena, no matter how spectacular, are what these missions were built to observe and share. An explosive fragmentation, a strange outgassing pattern, an unusual chemical composition. These would be celebrated discoveries, leading to press conferences and publications in top scientific journals. A coordinated multinational cover-up is reserved for something else entirely. It is reserved for a discovery that is paradigm-breaking in a way that is deemed too disruptive for public knowledge. The case of 3I/ATLAS serves as a grim precedent. It demonstrates that the promise of a future data release is likely an empty one. We were told the 3I/ATLAS data was merely delayed. It ended up being permanently buried under a questionable claim of pointing errors. We are now being told the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS data is merely delayed. History suggests we should expect a similar outcome. The data will be held indefinitely, and eventually, a mundane and unverifiable excuse will be offered for its permanent loss or lack of scientific value. This ghost in the machine, this echo from the past, proves that the events of the last 96 hours are not a result of political chaos or bureaucratic red tape. They are the result of a deliberate, practiced, and efficient system of information control. The question is no longer asterisk if asterisk the data is being suppressed. The historical precedent proves that it is. The question we must now ask is asterisk why asterisk? What did 3I/ATLAS and Tsuchinshan-ATLAS have in common? What did the HiRISE camera see on the dark side of these comets that triggered an identical international lockdown protocol 5 years apart? The answer lies somewhere in those missing pixels, but the pattern of deception itself tells us that the discovery was something that fundamentally challenges our understanding of the universe and our place within it. To expose the artificial nature of this information blackout, we must move beyond patterns and examine the precise, minute-by-minute timeline of the last 4 days. Institutional lies, especially those coordinated across multiple continents and languages, invariably break down under the scrutiny of a chronological forensic analysis. The contradictions are found in the seconds and minutes between scheduled events and official statements. Let's begin on September 15th, 2025. On this day, data packets from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter confirmed its orbital path was perfectly aligned for the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS encounter. This was a routine telemetry check. The orbital prediction models were validated. A final minor course correction burn had been successfully executed the week prior. According to a publicly accessible schedule on the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's Media Relations website, a routine press release was drafted and slated for publication on September 18th, under the placeholder title, MRO Captures Unprecedented View of Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS. The release was pre-written, a standard practice, with blank spaces left for the insertion of preliminary images and scientific commentary. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The health of the spacecraft was nominal, the instrument was ready, the alignment was perfect. The critical window for observation occurred on September 17th. As the Earth turned, the Deep Space Network's massive antenna dishes in Goldstone, California, Madrid, Spain, and Canberra, Australia, were all on alert, ready to receive the data. The primary data downlink was scheduled to begin at 14 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time. This was the moment the MRO, having completed its observation sequence and compressed the raw data, was programmed to orient its high-gain antenna towards Earth and begin transmission. This is not a manual process. It is a highly automated sequence, timed to the millisecond. 14 o'clock UTC came and went. In the public archives, where data from missions like MRO typically appears within hours of a downlink, there was nothing. No new files, no placeholder directories, no status updates. This was the first anomaly. While minor delays are not unheard of, a complete absence of any data packet acknowledgement from a scheduled, high-priority downlink is a significant red flag. It suggests that either the transmission never occurred or it was received and immediately routed to a secure, non-public server, bypassing the normal automated pipeline. The public-facing systems were simply left in the dark. The silence from NASA in the immediate hours following the missed downlink was perhaps understandable. They would be scrambling to diagnose a potential technical fault. But what happened next is what elevates this from a potential glitch to a coordinated action. At 9 o'clock UTC on September 18th, almost 19 hours after the scheduled downlink, the first official statements began to appear. And they appeared with a synchronization that defies belief. Within a 60-minute window, the European Space Agency, the China National Space Administration, and the UAE Space Agency all issued their own, nearly identical statements. ESA's statement, posted on their Mars Express mission blog, mentioned unexpected delays in data calibration from the recent cometary observation campaign. The UAE Space Agency, via their social media channels, reported a need to prioritize downlink for primary atmospheric data, leading to a rescheduling of the Comet data transmission. CNSA's statement was the most terse, simply noting technical issues with the data relay from their Tianwen-1 orbiter. Notice the lack of detail. Notice the careful avoidance of the word failure. And most importantly, notice the timing. 3 independent agencies, operating in different time zones, using different languages, and managing different spacecraft. All chose the same hour to release vague, non-committal statements about a data delay for the exact same observational target. This is not how international space science works. In the event of a genuine multi-spacecraft anomaly, the normal protocol would be a joint teleconference, followed by a unified, detailed press release explaining the shared technical challenge. Instead, what we saw were three carefully isolated, yet perfectly synchronized, whispers. It was a coordinated effort to control the narrative, to create a fog of minor, unrelated technical issues before the real overarching excuse was deployed. That excuse arrived 6 hours later. At approximately 15 o'clock UTC on September 18th, NASA updated its mission status page. The government shutdown, which had technically been in effect for several days, but had not yet been cited as impacting MRO operations, was suddenly presented as the sole reason for the data's absence. The statement was a masterpiece of bureaucratic misdirection, implying that the entire data processing pipeline had been halted. The pre-scheduled press release about the unprecedented view of the comet was quietly deleted from the JPL website. The placeholder entry vanished as if it had never existed. This timeline reveals the lie. The problem was not the shutdown. For nearly a full day after the data was captured, the issue was being framed by all other international partners as a series of minor, unrelated technical delays. It was only after this initial flimsy narrative was established that NASA provided the definitive shutdown-related explanation. This suggests a frantic, behind-the-scenes scramble. It is likely that the data was successfully downlinked at 14 o'clock UTC on the 17th. It was reviewed by a select group of scientists and agency officials. And what they saw triggered an immediate high-level decision to suppress it. The 19-hour delay was the time it took for the heads of 4 global space agencies to consult, to agree on a course of action, and to coordinate their initial obfuscating statements. The subsequent NASA shutdown excuse was the final heavy curtain dropped on the stage. The precision of the coordination is the key. The mathematical probability of 3 space agencies independently deciding to release vague statements about the same data anomaly within the same 60-minute window is vanishingly small. It speaks to a direct line of communication, a conference call where the talking points were agreed upon. Keep it vague. Mention calibration. We'll handle the main excuse from our end. The coordination is too precise. The timing too convenient. Furthermore, the international partners have maintained their silence ever since NASA's announcement. They have not contradicted the shutdown excuse, even though it has no technical bearing on their own operations. Their complicity in the face of an illogical explanation is a tacit admission that they are party to the deception. This is not a timeline of a technical failure. It is a timeline of a discovery, followed by a decision, followed by a carefully orchestrated multinational cover-up. The data from Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS is not lost. It is not delayed. It is being actively and deliberately hidden. And the chronological fingerprints of this decision are all over the public record of the last 4 days, a clear and undeniable trail of coordinated silence. The official narrative hinges entirely on a single pillar: the United States government shutdown. It is presented as an unavoidable external force, a bureaucratic act of nature that has regrettably frozen the gears of discovery. But this pillar is hollow. When we deconstruct the operational realities of NASA's Deep Space Network and the legal definitions of essential personnel, the entire excuse collapses into a deliberate and transparent smokescreen. Let's start with the Deep Space Network, or DSN. The DSN is the circulatory system of our solar system exploration. It is a global network of 3 massive radio astronomy facilities located in Goldstone, California, near Madrid, Spain, and near Canberra, Australia. These locations are spaced approximately 120 degrees apart around the globe, ensuring that any spacecraft in deep space can communicate with at least one station at all times as the Earth rotates. The DSN is not operated directly by NASA civil servants. It is managed by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, which is itself a federally funded research and development center, or FFRDC, operated under contract for NASA by the California Institute of Technology. This distinction is not just bureaucratic trivia, it is legally and operationally critical. During a government shutdown, the rules that apply to direct federal agencies are different from those that apply to contractors and FFRDCs. More importantly, specific activities are designated as accepted or essential to protect life and property. According to the Office of Management and Budget's own directives, and NASA's internal shutdown contingency plans, documents which are publicly available through the Freedom of Information Act, the continued operation of active space missions, and their associated communication networks is explicitly defined as essential. This includes commanding, controlling, and communicating with spacecraft, and the reception and initial processing of science and engineering data. The rationale is simple and obvious. You cannot simply turn off a multi-billion-dollar spacecraft like the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and hope for the best. Constant monitoring and communication are required to ensure its safety and the integrity of its mission. The engineers and operators at JPL who fly these missions and manage the DSN are not sent home during a shutdown. They are essential personnel. Their work continues, uninterrupted. Therefore, the claim that the shutdown halted the reception of data is demonstrably false. The DSN would have been fully staffed and operational, tracking the MRO and receiving its transmission at the scheduled time. The data packet, a stream of radio waves carrying the encoded images, would have been received, decoded, and stored on a server at JPL. This is an automated fundamental process that is not and cannot be halted by a funding lapse in Washington, D.C. The data exists. It is sitting on a hard drive in La Canada, Flint Ridge, California. The official statement from NASA is a carefully constructed piece of linguistic deception. It states that the processing and public release of the data is suspended. This is where they create their wiggle room. They are not claiming the data wasn't received. They are claiming they don't have the personnel to process it and put it on the public website. But this too strains credulity. The initial pipeline that converts raw telemetry into a usable digital image format is almost entirely automated. It is a series of scripts and algorithms that run on servers, not a manual process requiring dozens of furloughed scientists. While the deeper scientific analysis and interpretation would indeed be paused, the generation of raw, uncalibrated images should proceed automatically. The decision to withhold even these raw, unprocessed files was not a passive consequence of the shutdown. It was an active choice. Someone, or some group of individuals, made a specific decision to flag the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS data packet and prevent it from propagating through the automated pipeline to the public archives. The shutdown is not the cause of the data's absence. It is the ex post facto justification for a deliberate act of censorship. We can prove this by looking at other data streams. During this same shutdown period, routine engineering and telemetry data from other Mars assets, including the Perseverance rover, have continued to trickle into the public domain. Low-resolution weather data from other orbiters has been updated. The pipeline for Asterisk. Some Asterisk data remains open. It is only this specific high-value, high-resolution dataset from the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS flyby that has been completely and totally embargoed. If the shutdown were a blanket impediment, all data streams would cease. They have not. This selective withholding is the smoking gun. This institutional contradiction exposes the shutdown excuse for what it is: a convenient shield. It allows officials to deflect all inquiries with a simple, unarguable statement: we are prohibited by law from conducting this work. It shuts down debate. It silences journalists and curious citizens. Who can argue with a federal statute? But the statute itself and the agency's own contingency plans do not support their actions. The data should exist. The raw files should be available. The refusal to release them is not a procedural issue. It is a policy decision. This was not an automated system grinding to a halt. It was a person receiving an order to manually intervene and sequester a specific set of files. Now consider the international dimension: the shutdown of the US. Government has absolutely zero legal or financial bearing on the operations of the European Space Agency. ESA has its own tracking network, ESTRAC, and its own data processing centers. The same is true for China's CNSA and the UAE Space Agency. The fact that all four agencies have respected this data blackout and have not released their own independently acquired images proves that this is not about a shutdown. It is about a pre-arranged agreement. They are honoring an embargo that was clearly triggered by the content of the images themselves. The NASA shutdown simply provided the most plausible public-facing excuse for the American side of the operation, an excuse the other partners have quietly fallen in line with. The conclusion is inescapable. The data was received. It was deemed too sensitive for public release, and a convenient pre-existing political situation was leveraged as the perfect, non-falsifiable reason to hide it from the world. The most glaring flaw in the official narrative is its complete inability to account for the synchronized silence of three other global space powers. A United States government shutdown is a domestic political event. It does not furlough engineers at the European Space Operations Center in Germany. It does not halt data processing at the Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center. It certainly does not affect the mission controllers at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in Dubai. Yet, all three of these independent, well-funded, and technologically advanced agencies have acted in perfect lockstep with NASA, effectively honoring a data embargo that has no legal or logistical bearing upon them. This unified front, particularly between geopolitical rivals like the United States and China, is not just unusual. It is, under normal circumstances, almost unthinkable. It points to the existence of a hidden protocol, an agreement that supersedes national rivalries and the core scientific mission of open data sharing. To understand how this is possible, we need to look into the often overlooked world of international space agreements, specifically the Memorandums of Understanding, or MOUs, that govern data sharing for collaborative campaigns. When multiple agencies agree to observe the same astronomical event, they typically sign agreements that outline how data will be calibrated, shared among the scientific teams, and eventually released to the public. These are usually boilerplate documents, promoting cooperation and ensuring that all partners get fair access to the findings. However, buried deep within the annexes of some of these agreements are clauses that are rarely discussed in public. These clauses pertain to the handling of anomalous data or discoveries with potential planetary defense implications. While the exact wording is often classified, sources within the aerospace community have indicated that these protocols allow for a single partner agency to request a temporary, multinational embargo on a specific dataset if it meets certain criteria. This is a fail-safe, a mechanism designed to prevent a single nation from unilaterally releasing information that could cause global panic or have unforeseen security consequences before a coordinated assessment can be made. The Tsuchinshan-ATLAS observation campaign was governed by such an MOU. The coordinated silence we are witnessing is the visible effect of one of these hidden clauses being activated. The data was downlinked, it was reviewed. And something within that data triggered a flag, perhaps at JPL, perhaps simultaneously at all four agencies, that led to the invocation of this embargo protocol. NASA, likely as the lead agency for the highest resolution instrument, HiRISE, would have formally requested that its partners in Europe, China, and the UAE withhold their own data pending further analysis. The USCI government shutdown then became the perfect public excuse for NASA's own compliance with the embargo it had just initiated. The other agencies, bound by the terms of the MOU, had no choice but to comply, offering their own vague, flimsy excuses about calibration delays to bridge the gap, until NASA's official reason became the dominant narrative. This is no longer a matter of coincidence. It is the cold, calculated execution of a pre-existing international agreement designed for exactly this kind of contingency. Let's consider the mathematical improbability of the alternative. What is the likelihood that 4 independent space programs all experienced a simultaneous and unrelated technical failure during the exact same observation window of the same object? Let's be generous. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has been a workhorse, but it is an aging spacecraft. Let's assign a 1% probability of a critical data transmission failure on any given day. Mars Express is also a veteran mission, so let's give it a similar 1% probability. Tianwen-1 and Hope are much newer, so their probability of failure would be significantly lower, let's say 0.1% each. The probability of all 4 of these independent events happening on the same day is calculated by multiplying their individual probabilities. That's 0.01 multiplied by 0.01 comma, multiplied by 0.001 comma, multiplied by 0.001. The result is 0.0000000001 comma, or a 1 in 10 billion chance. To put that in perspective, you are vastly more likely to win the grand prize in the Powerball lottery multiple times in a row than for these 4 spacecraft to have failed in this specific coordinated manner. The math is undeniable. This was not a series of unfortunate independent accidents. It was a single, coordinated decision. The geopolitical dimension makes this coordination even more astonishing. The United States and China are locked in a fierce technological and strategic competition. Their space programs are a key element of this rivalry. They rarely cooperate on major projects. In fact, U.S. law, through the Wolf Amendment, severely restricts NASA's bilateral cooperation with Chinese state-owned entities. The fact that CNSA is silently complying with a data embargo initiated by NASA suggests that the content of the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS images is so profound that it transcends even this intense geopolitical rivalry. What could possibly be so significant that it would cause Beijing to voluntarily suppress a major scientific discovery, forgoing the immense propaganda victory of revealing something that NASA was trying to hide? The only logical answer is that the discovery itself carries a risk that both nations, and indeed all spacefaring nations, agree is too great to release to the public without a unified strategy. It implies the data contains something that is not just scientifically anomalous, but potentially threatening or destabilizing on a global scale. This is not about winning a space race. It is about managing a shared secret of existential importance. The silence from the European Space Agency and the UAE is equally telling. ESA, traditionally a champion of open data access, has been completely mute. The UAE's Hope probe mission, a source of immense national pride and a symbol of the nation's entry into the exclusive club of planetary explorers, has also gone dark on the subject. The immense prestige that either of these agencies would gain by releasing a groundbreaking image that NASA was withholding would be immeasurable. Their refusal to do so is a testament to the gravity of the situation and the strength of the hidden agreement that binds them. They are all reading from the same script because they all saw the same thing. The international agreement, once a theoretical failsafe for an unlikely scenario, has been activated. The protocol is working exactly as designed, presenting a unified, impenetrable wall of silence to the outside world. The government shutdown is merely the American brick in that wall. The mortar holding it all together is the shared and now classified knowledge of what is truly depicted in the Mars photographs of Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS. To comprehend the nature of the secret being guarded, we must analyze the specific tool used to uncover it. The decision to use the high-resolution imaging science experiment, HiRISE, was not incidental. It reveals the precise and targeted nature of the investigation. HiRISE is not a survey instrument. It is not designed to take wide, scenic photographs of space. It is, for all intents and purposes, a sniper rifle. It is a powerful telescopic imager with an exceptionally narrow field of view, just 1.14 degrees wide. On the surface of Mars, this allows it to capture a thin strip of terrain about 6 kilometers across with breathtaking detail. But when aimed at a distant object like Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS, it meant the mission planners had to know exactly where to point it, with arc-second precision, to capture the nucleus and nothing but the nucleus. They were not interested in the majestic sweep of the comet's coma or the structure of its tail. Those features could be studied from Earth. The multi-million-dollar asset of the HiRISE camera was tasked with a single purpose: to resolve the solid body at the heart of the comet. This targeted approach implies they were looking for something specific, a deviation from the expected norm of a lumpy, porous, and geologically chaotic body of ice and rock. At the flyby distance of approximately 22.4 million kilometers, the calculated resolution of 2 meters per pixel is the key. This level of detail crosses a critical threshold. It moves beyond simply mapping large geological features and enters the realm of identifying artificiality. A natural comet nucleus might have cliffs, craters, and fissures, but it would not have perfectly geometric patterns, metallic reflections that defy natural geology, or repeating manufactured-looking surface features. At 2 meters per pixel, a school bus would be a discernible object. A large antenna dish would be an unmistakable shape. An organized array of surface vents would be starkly obvious, completely different from the chaotic random outgassing expected from a natural comet. The use of HiRISE was a calculated gamble that the nucleus of Tsuchinshan-ATLAS was not just a simple ball of ice, and the international data lockdown strongly suggests that this gamble paid off. Let's consider what known physics would be violated by some of the potential discoveries HiRISE could have made. The most profound would be the observation of controlled, non-uniform outgassing. Natural comets vent gas and dust as the sun heats their surface, a process called sublimation. This process is messy and chaotic, driven by the rotation of the nucleus and the composition of its surface. Jets erupt from weak spots in the crust, often in unpredictable ways. But what if the HiRISE images revealed jets firing in a way that defied this natural process? What if jets on the dark, unheated side of the comet were seen firing with the same intensity as those on the sunlit side? This would imply an internal power source, something generating heat and pressure from within. What if the jets were seen firing in a coordinated pulsed sequence, perhaps to stabilize the comet's rotation, or to make a subtle course correction? This would be an unambiguous sign of intelligent control. It would violate the fundamental principles of thermodynamics and orbital mechanics as they apply to inert celestial bodies. A comet is supposed to be a passive object, a victim of the sun's energy. Evidence of controlled propulsion would transform it from a geological curiosity into an active, technological object. Another possibility lies in the comet's trajectory. A key reason for the Mars observation was to establish a long, precise baseline for tracking the comet's path. By combining the observations from Mars with simultaneous observations from Earth, astronomers can use a technique called parallax to pinpoint the comet's position in 3D space with incredible accuracy. This allows them to search for tiny, non-Keplerian trajectory adjustments. Non-Keplerian simply means a change in motion that cannot be explained by the gravitational pull of the Sun and planets alone. While natural comets do exhibit some non-Keplerian motion due to the gentle rocket-like push from their outgassing jets, this effect is well understood and can be modeled. If the parallax measurements from the Mars-Earth baseline revealed a deviation from its predicted path that was stronger than the models allowed, or occurred in a direction inconsistent with the observed outgassing, it would be a smoking gun. It would be hard physical proof that the object was under some form of controlled propulsion, however slight. The high-resolution HiRISE images would then serve as the visual confirmation, showing the unnatural vents responsible for this impossible maneuver. Finally, there is the question of surface composition. HiRISE takes images in 3 different color bands: blue-green, red, and near-infrared. This allows scientists to create color maps that reveal variations in the surface material. While not a true spectrometer, it can easily distinguish between different types of ice, rock, and dust. But what if it saw something that didn't fit any of those categories? What if a portion of the nucleus returned a spectral signature indicating processed metals, like titanium or aluminum alloys? What if it detected a surface with an unnaturally high radar albedo, a measure of reflectivity, suggesting a smooth metallic surface hiding just beneath a thin layer of dust? A natural body formed in the Oort cloud should be a primitive mix of water ice, frozen gases, and carbonaceous dust. The presence of refined metals would be an impossible anomaly, a clear indicator that the object, or at least a part of it, was manufactured. HiRISE was built to see the unexpected on Mars. It was designed to find strange minerals and evidence of past water. Its power is in its ability to reveal things that don't belong. It is the perfect tool for identifying an artificial object masquerading as a natural one. The fact that the data from this specific instrument is at the heart of an international cover-up is the strongest piece of evidence we have. They pointed a microscope at this comet, and the resulting image was evidently so clear, so unambiguous, and so paradigm-shattering that the only possible response was to lock it away and pretend the experiment had failed. While the official channels of the world's space agencies remain a barren desert of information, whispers are beginning to emanate from the scientific community. These are the trickles of information that flow through unofficial channels, backroom conversations, encrypted emails, and anonymous posts from individuals close enough to the projects to know the truth, but rightly fearful of the professional. Consequences of speaking it. We have spent the last 72 hours reaching out to our network of sources within planetary science, aerospace engineering, and academia. While no one is willing to go on the record, a consistent picture is beginning to emerge. A picture that directly contradicts the official narrative of a failed or delayed observation. One source, a planetary scientist at a major European university with direct ties to the Mars Express mission, has confirmed under the strictest condition of anonymity that the observing sequence was not only uploaded, but was confirmed as successfully executed via telemetry. The data, they insist, was taken. The spacecraft performed nominally. The pointing was perfect. We got the data, they stated in a brief encrypted message. Then we were told to stand by for a joint data processing protocol. Then, silence. Our internal access to the raw files was revoked. The order came from the highest levels of the agency directorate. No explanation given. This testimony is crucial. It confirms that the data exists and was of high quality, directly refuting any potential future claim of pointing errors or instrument malfunction, the very excuse used to bury the DA from 3I/ATLAS. The decision to restrict access was not a technical one. It was a political and administrative one, executed swiftly and without precedent. Another source, a former JPL engineer who still maintains close ties with the Deep Space Network operations team, has pointed to a different, equally strange anomaly. During the scheduled downlink window for the MRO data on September 17th, the radio spectrum around the DSN's primary receiving frequency for Mars was, in their words, unusually quiet. Typically, even during a routine downlink, there is a significant amount of radio noise and sideband transmissions that can be picked up by other radio astronomy observatories. It is the signature of a massive data transfer across millions of kilometers. However, several independent radio astronomers who were monitoring that band reported a near-total lack of activity. This doesn't necessarily mean the transmission didn't happen. The source suggests it could mean the opposite, that the downlink was conducted using a highly encrypted frequency-agile protocol that is normally reserved for classified military satellites, not for open scientific missions. They might have squirted the data over a spread spectrum or used a laser communication relay that is not public knowledge, the source speculated. Either way, it suggests the data was considered highly sensitive asterisk before asterisk it was even received on the ground. The decision to handle this data on a classified channel seems to have been made in advance. This would explain the lack of any trace in the public-facing systems. The data was never intended for the public pipeline. It was routed from the moment of its reception into a secure, compartmentalized system, completely bypassing the normal scientific archives. The silence in the radio spectrum was not an absence of signal. It was the sound of a secret being kept. The most compelling evidence, however, has come from a leaked email chain from the astronomy department of a prominent American university, which we have been able to verify. The emails, dated September 18th and 19th, show a group of senior professors and postdoctoral researchers debating the official statements from NASA and its partners. Their confusion and professional skepticism are palpable. One professor writes, "The shutdown excuse makes no sense for the other agencies. Why are ESA and CNSA playing along? Have you ever seen rivals coordinate a blackout like this?" Another replies, "I was on a telecon this morning with the HiRISE team lead. He was visibly stressed. He said he was not at liberty to discuss the observation and that all inquiries were being handled by NASA Public Affairs. This is the guy who has been working towards this observation for 3 years. He should be celebrating." Instead, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. The email chain goes on to discuss the 3I/ATLAS precedent, with one researcher noting, "It's the same playbook, exactly the same." They're going to bury this data, and we're not going to get a straight answer. Something is fundamentally wrong. These emails provide a raw, unfiltered look at the confusion and suspicion that is spreading through the scientific community. These are not conspiracy theorists. These are the world's leading experts in the field, the very people who were supposed to be analyzing this data, and they do not believe the story they are being told. They know the systems, they know the protocols, and they know their colleagues. The official narrative fails their test of professional logic. The stressed-out team lead, the revocation of internal data access, the coordinated and illogical statements from international partners. It all paints a picture of a scientific community being deliberately sidelined by a high-level administrative decision. The experts are being locked out of their own experiment. The whispers are growing louder. They confirm the data exists. They suggest it was transmitted and received under unusually secure protocols. And they reveal that the scientists who should be studying it are just as confused and suspicious as the rest of us. The silence from the agencies is being filled by the concerned and courageous voices of those on the inside, who know that a profound scientific discovery is being actively and inexplicably suppressed. While the world's most powerful, publicly funded orbital telescopes were being inexplicably silenced, a different network was watching. This network has no central command, no multi-billion-dollar budget, and no press office. It is a global web of dedicated amateur astronomers, highly skilled individuals who operate sophisticated observatories from their own backyards, remote deserts, and mountaintops. Armed with commercial telescopes, sensitive CCD cameras, and powerful image processing software, this community provides a constant, independent stream of data on the heavens, a crucial check and balance against the curated information released by official institutions. And in the case of Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS, what they found is the key to understanding why the agencies went dark. While the Martian orbiters were focused on getting a high-resolution snapshot of the nucleus, the amateur network was doing what it does best: long-duration photometry. Photometry is the science of measuring the brightness of an object over time. By taking hundreds or even thousands of images over the course of a night and carefully measuring the comet's brightness in each one, these astronomers can create what is known as a light curve, a graph of brightness versus time. A comet's light curve can tell you a great deal. Its overall gradual brightening or dimming tells you if it's becoming more or less active as it approaches the sun. A regular, repeating pulse in the light curve can reveal the rotation period of the nucleus, as different sides with varying reflectivity and outgassing activity turn to face us. Irregular, sudden outbursts in brightness can signal a fragmentation event, where a piece of the nucleus breaks off and exposes fresh, volatile ice to the sun. The amateur network was monitoring Tsuchinshan-ATLAS for exactly these kinds of natural behaviors. But they found something else, something unnatural. A consortium of over a dozen advanced amateur observatories, from Australia to Arizona to the Canary Islands, pooled their photometric data from the nights leading up to and including the Mars flyby. When they combined and analyzed this data, removing the noise from Earth's atmosphere and other variables, a stunningly clear pattern emerged. The comet was exhibiting a repeating anomalous brightness fluctuation. It was not a simple smooth sine wave which would indicate a rotating potato-shaped object. It was a complex, almost geometric pattern. Every 4.7 hours, precisely, the comet's brightness would increase by 0.2 magnitudes, hold steady for approximately 15 minutes, and then drop back to its baseline. A 0.2 magnitude fluctuation is significant. It represents an increase in brightness of about 20%. For this to be caused by rotation, it would require the nucleus to have an extremely elongated shape or a massive, highly reflective spot on one side, features that are plausible but uncommon. But the shape of the fluctuation is what defies a natural explanation. The sharp increase, the flat plateau at peak brightness, and the equally sharp decrease are not characteristic of a rotating, tumbling, and chaotically outgassing body. Natural processes are messy. They produce smooth curves, not patterns with sharp angles and flat tops. It looks less like the light curve of a comet and more like the signal from a pulsing machine. Several natural explanations were proposed and systematically ruled out by the amateur group. It wasn't an artifact of Earth's rotation, as the pattern was observed consistently from different locations around the globe. It wasn't a simple rotation, as the shape was wrong and inconsistent with any plausible physical model of a comet nucleus. It wasn't a series of random outgassing outbursts, because the pattern was rigorously periodic, repeating every 4.7 hours with a precision of mere seconds. This repeating 4.7-hour signal is the ground truth. It is an independently verified, observable fact about Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS. Now consider what this means for the data that is being withheld. If a network of small ground-based telescopes can detect this anomalous 20% brightness fluctuation with crystal clarity, imagine what the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's HiRISE camera would have seen. It would not have just registered a dot of light getting brighter and dimmer. It would have seen the asterisk cause asterisk of the fluctuation at a resolution of 2 meters per pixel. It would have seen the specific region on the nucleus that was brightening. Was it a massive, perfectly flat, mirror-like surface catching the sun's glare for 15 minutes every 4.7 hours? Was it a synchronized eruption of multiple outgassing jets, turning on and off in unison with machine-like precision? Was it the opening of a massive door or aperture revealing a more reflective interior? Any of these possibilities would be unambiguous proof of artificiality. The amateur data is the why of the cover-up. The agencies saw this strange periodic signal from the ground, which is why they tasked their most powerful instruments to get a close-up look. The HiRISE images don't just show an anomaly. They show the source of the anomaly. And that source was apparently so world-changing that it triggered an immediate international lockdown. Perhaps the most disturbing development in this part of the story is what happened after the amateur consortium published its findings. The data and analysis were initially posted on several prominent, well-respected astronomy forums and mailing lists. Within 24 hours, 2 of these threads were inexplicably deleted. The moderators of one forum claimed the post violated their policy on speculative claims, even though the post contained nothing but raw data and standard analysis. The lead astronomer of the amateur group reported that his personal blog, where the full dataset was hosted, was hit with a massive denial of service attack, forcing it offline for several hours. This is not the normal process of scientific debate. It is an active, albeit clumsy, attempt at information suppression. They cannot erase the data, which has now been copied and mirrored across the internet. But they can try to disrupt its dissemination, to muddy the waters and cast doubt on its credibility. These actions, combined with the official silence, create a powerful feedback loop of suspicion. The amateur data shows a clear, periodic, and unnatural signal coming from the comet. The agencies, with their superior vantage point, would have seen the cause of this signal with undeniable clarity. And now, someone is attempting to silence the very amateurs who first uncovered this inconvenient truth. The ground-based observations have provided the context for the missing Mars images, revealing not just that the agencies are hiding something, but precisely what they are hiding. Visual proof of the source of a repeating machine-like signal emanating from the heart of a comet. In any complex investigation, identifying the common denominator is the key to unlocking the motive. In the mystery of the suppressed comet data, the common denominator is not the comets themselves, as unique as they are, nor is it the specific instruments used. It is the location, Mars. For both the interstellar object 3I/ATLAS in 2020 and for Tsuchinshan-ATLAS now, the critical, classified observations were made from the vantage point of the red planet. This cannot be a coincidence. It forces us to ask a fundamental question. Why is the view from Mars so special? Why does this specific orbital perspective provide information so sensitive that it warrants an international cover-up, not once but twice? The answer lies in the power of stereoscopic vision and the unique geometric leverage that the orbit of Mars provides. On a basic level, observing an object from two different locations simultaneously allows you to perceive depth and calculate distance with incredible precision. This is the principle behind our own two eyes, and it's a technique called parallax. By measuring the tiny shift in an object's apparent position against a distant background from two separate points, you can calculate its distance using simple trigonometry. When observing an object in the solar system, the widest possible baseline we can get on Earth is the diameter of our own planet, about 12,700 kilometers. This is useful for nearby asteroids, but for an object millions of kilometers away like a comet, this baseline is too small to yield highly precise results. However, if you use the Earth and Mars as your two observation points, your baseline is no longer 12,700 kilometers. At the time of the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS flyby, the baseline between Earth and Mars was over 100 million kilometers. This immense separation acts as a massive cosmic rangefinder, a stereoscopic system on a planetary scale. Using this Earth-Mars baseline, astronomers can pinpoint a comet's position in three-dimensional space with a precision that is simply impossible from Earth alone. We are not talking about small improvements in accuracy. We are talking about orders of magnitude. This extreme precision is the key to detecting the tiniest deviations in an object's trajectory. As we discussed, comets are not perfect gravitational billiard balls. The force of their outgassing jets acts like a tiny, unpredictable rocket engine, pushing them gently off the path that gravity alone would dictate. For decades, modeling this non-gravitational force has been a major challenge in planetary science. But with the hyper-accurate positional data from a Mars-Earth baseline, you could not only detect this force, but measure it with exquisite detail. You could see in near real time if the comet was deviating from its predicted path in a way that the sun's heating could not explain. This leads to the first theory for the Mars vantage point anomaly. The observations were designed to confirm an impossible flight characteristic. The anomalous light curve seen by amateurs suggested machine-like activity. The Mars-Earth parallax measurement would have provided the definitive proof, showing the object making a minute but deliberate course correction that no natural outgassing could ever produce. The HiRISE images would have captured the why, the specific controlled vents firing, while the parallax data would have captured the what, the resulting impossible change in trajectory. But there is a second, more subtle, and perhaps more profound reason why the Martian vantage point is so critical. It's not just about observing the comet itself, but about using the comet as a tool to observe something else. The technique is called stellar occultation. As a comet or asteroid moves through space, it periodically passes in front of distant stars. From a single vantage point like Earth, this is a simple on-off event. The star blinks out as the object passes in front of it, and blinks back on when it has passed. The duration of this blink tells you the size of the object. However, if you observe the same occultation from two widely separated points like Earth and Mars, the event becomes much more powerful. Due to the parallax effect, the object will appear to trace a slightly different path across the background stars from each planet. This allows you to probe not just the solid nucleus, but the area asterisk around asterisk it. Imagine the comet is moving past a dense field of background stars. From Earth, you might see it occult or block out a dozen stars. From Mars, you would see it block out a slightly different set of a dozen stars. By combining the data, you can build a comprehensive map of not only the object itself, but also of any faint, transparent material, or even smaller, unseen objects that might be accompanying it. Was the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS observation a massive occultation experiment in disguise? Were they using its passage to look for something in its vicinity that is otherwise invisible? This could be a vast, transparent cloud of dust or gas, perhaps evidence of a sophisticated stealth technology. Or more plausibly, it could be a method to detect smaller secondary objects, probes or drones, that may have been released from the primary body. A small, non-reflective probe flying alongside the comet would be completely invisible to direct imaging, but it would still block out the light of a background star. If the observatories on Earth saw a star blink out, but the spacecraft at Mars, looking from a slightly different angle, did not see that same star blink out, it would be definitive proof of a small, unseen object in a specific location near the comet. This delivery system scenario is one of the most compelling explanations for the extreme secrecy. If the HiRISE images revealed the comet to be an automated carrier, and the joint occultation observations confirmed that it had deployed smaller sub-probes into Martian or Earth-crossing orbits. This would trigger the highest levels of planetary defense protocols. It would no longer be a scientific curiosity. It would be a potential security event. The need for coordinated international secrecy would be immediate and absolute. The Mars vantage point is the common denominator because it is the key to unlocking these deeper secrets. It provides the geometric leverage needed to confirm impossible maneuvers and to detect unseen companion objects. The data from Earth alone is suggestive, but the data from Mars, when combined with Earth's, is definitive. They used the red planet as a cosmic tripod, allowing them to make a measurement that was so clear and so alarming that the only response was to hide the evidence and deny that the measurement was ever taken. The secret is not just what the comet is, but what it was doing and what it may have left behind. As the official silence from the world space agencies has solidified into an impenetrable wall, the digital underground has begun to fight back. In the hidden corners of the internet, on encrypted forums and anonymous message boards, a series of tantalizing and deeply disturbing breadcrumbs have started to appear. These are not wild, unsubstantiated rumors. They are specific, technical, and internally consistent claims, allegedly from individuals with inside access, that are slowly building a terrifying architectural framework around the core mystery. While we must treat such anonymous sources with caution, their claims align so perfectly with the established facts of the case that they cannot be dismissed. The first and most significant of these was a post that appeared on a dark web forum known for hosting leaks from whistleblowers in the tech and aerospace sectors. The post, written by a user claiming to be a data analyst for a European Space Agency subcontractor, was brief and cryptic. It read, "They are not hiding a rock. Ask them about the spectrographic signatures from the MRO's CRISM instrument. Ask them why it showed strong absorption bands for molybdenum and a refined titanium alloy. These are not found in comets." The images are not the only proof. This claim is in bombshell. CRISM, the Compact Reconnaissance Imaging Spectrometer for Mars, is another instrument on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. While HiRISE provides the high-resolution black and white images, CRISM analyzes the mineralogical composition of the surface by looking at how it reflects different wavelengths of light. It is designed to find traces of specific minerals on Mars, but it can be, and has been, used to analyze other targets of opportunity, including comets. The specific mention of molybdenum and refined titanium alloy is profoundly significant. Molybdenum is a metallic element prized in aerospace engineering for its extremely high melting point and its ability to form hard, stable alloys. Titanium alloys are the backbone of modern aviation and spacecraft construction, valued for their high strength-to-weight ratio and resistance to corrosion. Neither of these materials, particularly in a refined alloyed state, has any business being on a pristine comet nucleus formed in the primordial Oort cloud. Their spectrographic signature would be an unambiguous chemical fingerprint of artificial technology. This leak, if true, suggests the agencies are not just hiding a picture of an unusually shaped object, but hard, analytical data, proving it is made of manufactured materials. The second breadcrumb is more technical, but no less revealing. It appeared in the form of a fragment of deleted code posted on a software development platform. A user noticed that a public GitHub repository used by a university team that develops open-source software for processing MRO data had been briefly updated with a new code commit, which was then almost immediately deleted. However, the brief window was long enough for automated archiving tools to capture it. The deleted code was a new filter for a Python script that processes raw data from MRO's Charade instrument, a ground-penetrating radar designed to look for subsurface ice on Mars. The filter was designed to flag and set aside any radar returns that showed an albedo or reflectivity value greater than 0.8. In the context of radar, an albedo of 0 represents a surface that absorbs all radar waves, while 1.0 represents a perfect reflector, like a flat metal plate. Natural geological surfaces, rock, ice, dust, have radar albedos that are typically very low, usually well below 0.4. An albedo of 0.8 is an extremely high value, almost unheard of in natural objects. It is the kind of reading you would expect from a smooth, solid, metallic surface. The presence of this filter in the code suggests that during the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS flyby, Charade was used not just to look asterisk at asterisk the comet, but to look asterisk through asterisk it. The radar would have penetrated the outer layer of dust and ice, and the high albedo filter was clearly written to search for a highly reflective metallic object hidden within the nucleus. The fact that the code was uploaded and then swiftly deleted suggests it was a tool created to analyze an unexpected result, and its public exposure was a mistake that was quickly rectified. These two pieces of evidence, the alleged spectrographic signature of industrial metals and the deleted radar filter code for detecting a high albedo subsurface object, build a powerful, consistent narrative. They suggest the MRO's full suite of instruments was used, and the combined data painted a picture of a Trojan horse. On the outside, a dusty, icy comet nucleus, but on the inside, a metallic, manufactured object. HiRISE would have provided the high-resolution images of the surface, perhaps showing vents or seams that betrayed its artificial nature. CRISM would have provided the chemical analysis, showing the presence of refined alloys. And Charade would have provided the final proof, its radar waves bouncing off a solid metallic structure hidden just beneath the icy mantle. This Trojan horse theory elegantly explains the extreme coordinated secrecy. A simple, inert alien probe, however fascinating, could arguably be revealed to the public. But an object that appears to be deliberately camouflaged as a natural comet implies active, intelligent deception. It is not just an artifact, it is an actor. It is an unknown technology operating with an unknown intent, and it has now passed through the heart of our planetary neighborhood. The implications are not just scientific, they are strategic. The object is no longer a matter for astronomers, but for global security and defense agencies. The whispers from the dark web and the ghosts in the deleted code are the digital echoes of this suppressed discovery. They are the fragments of data that have managed to escape the containment field of the international embargo. While each piece on its own could be dismissed as a rumor or a technical error, taken together they form a coherent and deeply disturbing mosaic. They corroborate the evidence from the amateur light curves and provide a specific, technical explanation for what the Mars orbiters saw. They tell us that the object passing Mars was not a comet. It was something else, something constructed, something metallic, something that was actively hiding its true nature. And the world's space agencies, now acting in unison as gatekeepers of this terrible knowledge, have decided that this is a truth we are not ready to face. At a certain point in any investigation, when circumstantial evidence accumulates beyond a reasonable threshold, it becomes necessary to step back and apply the cold, dispassionate logic of mathematics. Coincidences happen. Mistakes are made. But complex, multi-part coincidences that all align to support a single, convenient narrative are a statistical improbability. Let's systematically calculate the odds of the official story being true, factoring in each layer of the anomaly we have uncovered. We will be conservative in our estimates, giving the official narrative every possible benefit of the doubt. The first event we must consider is the timing of the government shutdowns. The United States has experienced several government shutdowns in recent decades. For the sake of this calculation, let's assume a shutdown occurs roughly once every 2 years, or in 1 out of every 24 months. The first critical cometary observation from Mars was for 3I/ATLAS in May 2020. The second was for Tsuchinshan-ATLAS in September 2025. These are two distinct, high-priority scientific events. The probability of a random month having a government shutdown is 1 in 24. The probability of 2 *specific* and scientifically critical months *, both * being impacted by a shutdown, is 1/24 multiplied by 1/24, which equals 1 in 576. Already the odds are less than 0.2%. This is akin to correctly guessing a random 3-digit number on the first try. It's unlikely, but perhaps not impossible. It's a suspicious coincidence, but it could, in theory, still be a coincidence. However, this is only the first layer of improbability. We must now factor in the simultaneous and unexplained compliance of the other 3 international space agencies. Let's analyze the event on September 18, 2025, when ESA, CNSA, and the UAE Space Agency all released their vague, synchronized statements about data delays within the same 60-minute window. Let's generously assume there's a 10% chance on any given day that a major space agency has a minor data transmission issue that warrants a public statement. This is a very high estimate, but we are being conservative. The probability of 3 independent agencies all having such an issue on the same day would be 0.1 multiplied by 0.1 multiplied by 0.1 comma, which is 0.001 comma, or a 1 in 1,000 chance. But they didn't just have issues on the same day. They announced them in the same hour. There are 24 hours in a day. The probability of 3 independent announcements falling into the same specific 1-hour block is 1/24 multiplied by 1/24 multiplied by 1/24, which is 1 in 13,824. When we combine this with the probability of the daily failure itself, the odds of this synchronized event happening by random chance are approximately 1 in 13.8 million. Now, we must combine these two independent sets of probabilities. The probability of the 2 shutdowns aligning with the 2 comets, 1 in 576, asterisk and asterisk the 3 international agencies independently, and coincidentally issuing synchronized statements, 1 in 13.8 million, is found by multiplying these two numbers together. The resulting odds are 1 in approximately 7.9 billion. Let that number sink in. The probability of the official narrative, a series of unfortunate, unrelated coincidences, being true is roughly the same as picking one specific person by name out of the entire population of planet Earth. It is an astronomical improbability. The mathematical conclusion is inescapable. These events are not independent. They are causally linked. The shutdowns are not a random misfortune. They are a tool. The synchronized statements are not a coincidence. They are evidence of coordination. And even this staggering calculation does not include all the variables. We have not factored in the probability of the amateur astronomy network detecting a perfectly periodic, non-natural light curve from the same object. We have not factored in the probability of a deleted code commit appearing on a public repository containing a filter for an impossibly high radar albedo. We have not factored in the probability of an anonymous but technically specific leak detailing the presence of refined industrial metals in the comet's spectral signature. If we were to assign even modest probabilities to each of these additional events and multiply them into our equation, the final odds would not be 1 in billions. They would be 1 in trillions or quadrillions. The number would become so vast as to be meaningless. It would be the statistical equivalent of a miracle. Mathematics and logic lead to a single powerful conclusion. We are observing the effects of a deliberate, pre-planned protocol for information suppression. The pattern is not accidental, it is by design. The sequence of events is not random, it is a script being followed. The existence of such a protocol is, in itself, a profound discovery. It proves that the world's spacefaring nations have a shared contingency plan for a discovery so paradigm-shifting that it is deemed too dangerous for public consumption. They have war-gamed this exact scenario. They have drafted the agreements, established the secure communication channels, and rehearsed the plausible denials. The odds do not lie. The story we are being told is a statistical impossibility. The truth is that we are not witnessing a series of coincidences. We are witnessing a perfectly executed cover-up, a plan set in motion by the content of the data itself, a data set that remains locked away, its secrets guarded by a wall of mathematically improbable lies. The numbers tell us the what. The final question is the why. With the official narrative dismantled by chronological contradictions, historical precedent, and statistical improbability, we are left facing the core of the mystery. What could the Mars orbiters have possibly seen that would trigger such an extreme, immediate, and internationally coordinated protocol of absolute secrecy? The data itself remains hidden, but based on the evidence we have gathered, the unique observational geometry, the targeted use of high-resolution instruments, the anomalous light curve, and the technical leaks, we can construct a series of logical scenarios moving from the most direct to the most complex. Each scenario would, in its own way, be a world-altering revelation. Scenario 1. The object is unambiguously artificial. This is the simplest and most direct explanation. The HiRISE images, with their 2-meter per pixel resolution, did not show a lumpy, chaotic ball of ice and rock. Instead, they revealed a manufactured object. Perhaps it was a vast, geometric structure, pitted and scarred from eons of travel through the interstellar medium, but with its underlying non-natural form still clearly visible. Perhaps it showed repeating patterns, metallic surfaces reflecting the distant sun, or even lights and emissions from specific organized points. The spectrographic data from CRISM would have confirmed the presence of refined metals, and the Shared radar would have revealed a solid metallic interior beneath any superficial icy debris. In this scenario, there would be no room for ambiguity, no possibility of misinterpretation as a natural phenomenon. It would be the astronomical equivalent of finding a stainless steel watch on a supposedly deserted island. The discovery would be absolute, undeniable proof that we are not alone in the universe. The motivation for secrecy would be immense. Governments would fear mass panic, the collapse of religious and social structures, and the unpredictable geopolitical consequences of revealing that a highly advanced, unknown technology is actively traversing our solar system. The knee-jerk reaction would be to control the narrative, to classify the discovery until a unified global response could be formulated. Scenario 2. The object is natural but poses a direct and imminent threat. In this scenario, the object is indeed a comet, but the detailed observations from Mars revealed something catastrophic about its future trajectory. Perhaps the new, hyper-accurate positional data from the Mars-Earth parallax measurement showed that the comet, or a large, recently calved fragment of it, is on a collision course not with Mars, but with Earth, or with a critical orbital asset like the International Space Station or a key satellite constellation. Or perhaps the analysis of its outgassing revealed a composition that is highly toxic, or contains unknown biological contaminants that could be hazardous to Earth's biosphere if it were to pass too closely. The suppression here would be intended to prevent global panic and societal breakdown. If an impact were unavoidable and predicted to occur in the near future, governments might conclude that revealing this information would only lead to chaos, with no tangible benefit. They would choose to maintain normalcy for as long as possible. While this scenario is plausible, it doesn't fully align with all the evidence. It fails to explain the anomalous light curve, the evidence of refined metals, or the precedent of the 3I/ATLAS data suppression. A simple impact threat would be a terrible discovery, but it wouldn't necessarily require this specific multi-layered pattern of deception. Scenario 3. The comet is a delivery system. This is the most complex and disturbing scenario, but it is the one that best fits all the available evidence. In this model, Tsuchinshan-ATLAS is a Trojan horse, an automated camouflaged probe designed to look like a natural comet. Its purpose is to travel through a star system, deploy smaller secondary probes, and then continue on its journey, its true nature remaining undetected. The anomalous 4.7-hour light curve could be the signature of a deployment mechanism, a regular cycle of an internal bay door opening and closing. The HiRISE images would have captured this process in action, a portion of the comet's surface retracting to reveal a manufactured interior, followed by the release of one or more smaller objects. The Mars-Earth occultation observations would have then confirmed the presence of these smaller, stealthy probes, now flying independently. This scenario would explain everything. It explains the need for the Mars vantage point to detect the deployed objects. It explains the anomalous light curve. It explains the spectrographic and radar evidence of a metallic interior. And it provides the most powerful motivation imaginable for a total international lockdown of information. The discovery would not just be that aliens exist, but that their technology is sophisticated enough for stealth, and that they are actively deploying hardware within our own solar system. The intent of these probes would be unknown. Are they for passive observation, resource prospecting, or something more hostile? The uncertainty itself would be a global security nightmare of the highest order. Every nation with a space program would have an immediate vested interest in suppressing the information to prevent panic while they scramble to track these new unknown objects and assess their capabilities and intent. Of these three possibilities, the third scenario, the delivery system, aligns most completely with every piece of evidence we have painstakingly assembled. The coordinated silence is not just about a single object, it's about what that object did. It is about the discovery that our solar system may no longer be ours alone. The agencies are not hiding a photograph. They are hiding the evidence of an action, an event, a deployment. They are hiding the fact that we may now have new, uninvited, and technologically superior neighbors whose motives are a complete and terrifying mystery. The silence continues because the assessment of this new reality is still underway, taking place behind the closed doors of the world's defense and intelligence agencies. The ultimate revelation from the Tsuchinshan-ATLAS affair may not be about the comet itself. The true, and perhaps more lasting discovery, is the exposure of a seamless, globally coordinated mechanism for scientific censorship. We have witnessed in real time the activation of a system so efficient and so powerful that it can instantly silence the world's 4 leading space agencies, including those of bitter geopolitical rivals, and impose a unified, albeit illogical, narrative upon the entire world. This fact, independent of what the comet actually is, raises a series of deeply unsettling questions about the nature of knowledge and power in the 21st century. The most immediate question is one of authority. Who authorized this? A decision of this magnitude, one that involves the deliberate suppression of a monumental scientific discovery and the coordination of multiple international governments, could not have been made by a mid-level NASA administrator or a university. Science team. The speed and precision of the coordinated response suggests that the decision-making process bypassed the normal scientific and public affairs channels entirely. It points to the existence of a high-level standing committee, likely composed of representatives from the military, intelligence, and executive branches of the world's major powers. This is the entity that would be governed by the secret protocols buried in the memorandums of understanding. This is the they in what they are hiding. The Tsuchinshan-ATLAS event has inadvertently shone a spotlight on this shadow governance structure, proving that when it comes to discoveries deemed too sensitive, the scientists who gather the data and the institutions that fund them do not have the final say. The authority rests elsewhere, with a group whose primary concern is not the expansion of human knowledge, but the preservation of geopolitical stability and the control of information. This event has shattered a fundamental promise of the space age. The data gathered by our publicly funded space probes, from the Hubble telescope to the Mars rovers, is supposed to be the common heritage of all humanity. These missions are sold to the public as voyages of pure discovery, with the implicit contract that what is found will be shared openly. We now have irrefutable evidence that this contract is conditional. The data is not, in fact, public. It is curated. There is a filter between the raw discoveries made in the cosmos and what we, the public, are permitted to see. And if this filter can be so effectively applied in such a high-profile case, it forces us to ask the most troubling question of all: what else has been withheld? Tsuchinshan-ATLAS was a spectacular, unmissable event that drew the attention of the entire world, making the censorship obvious. But what about more subtle discoveries? A strange radio signal recorded by a deep space probe, explained away as instrument noise, an anomalous geological formation on a distant moon, dismissed as a trick of light and shadow. a series of unusual radar returns from the asteroid belt, classified as routine data calibration. How many other discoveries have been quietly buried using more subtle, less obvious excuses than a government shutdown? The Tsuchinshan-ATLAS protocol is the one we caught, the one that was too big to hide cleanly. But it implies the existence of a standard operating procedure for censorship, a procedure that has likely been used before and will certainly be used again. This coordinated silence does more than just hide a specific truth. It actively erodes public trust in the very institutions that are meant to be our windows to the universe. Science is supposed to operate on the principles of transparency, peer review, and the open contest of ideas. When scientific agencies participate in a clear and coordinated deception, they damage their own credibility, perhaps irreparably. Every future announcement will be viewed through a lens of suspicion. Every claim of a technical glitch or data delay will be questioned. The public will begin to wonder if they are being told the whole story, not just about comets, but about climate change, planetary defense, and the search for life. The agencies, by choosing secrecy, have traded a measure of long-term public trust for short-term control of the narrative. They may believe they are protecting us from a disruptive truth, but the real damage comes from the act of deception itself. A world that cannot trust its scientists is a world that is vulnerable to misinformation and fear. The precedent of silence is now firmly established. We have seen the mechanism in action. We know it is international in scope, ruthlessly efficient, and capable of overriding all normal scientific protocols. The true nature of Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS remains the central mystery, but the methodology of its cover-up is now a known fact. This knowledge changes our relationship with the cosmos. We are no longer just passive observers, waiting for our trusted institutions to tell us what they have found. We are now investigators, forced to treat official silence not as an absence of information, but as the loudest possible statement. It is a signal that a discovery of profound importance has been made, a discovery that has been deemed the exclusive property of a hidden global authority. The deepest question raised by this entire affair is not what is out there, it is who on earth decides who gets to know. The official statements, sparse and unchanged, continue to echo in the void. They remain frozen in time, digital monuments to a narrative that has crumbled under the weight of its own contradictions. The data from Comet Tsuchinshan-ATLAS, like the data from 3I/ATLAS before it, remains locked in a digital vault, held hostage by an excuse that defies the logic of mission-critical operations and the reality of international law. The world's most powerful orbital telescopes, positioned at a moment of perfect celestial alignment, saw something as the comet passed Mars. And the world's space agencies, acting with a chilling and unprecedented unity, coordinated to ensure that we would not. The contradictions are absolute, and they are irrefutable. We have the essential, legally protected nature of the deep space network's operations, which makes a data reception failure due to a shutdown a logistical impossibility. We have the complicity of three other global space powers, whose actions cannot be explained by American domestic politics, but only by a binding, pre-existing agreement. We have the independent, verifiable data from the amateur astronomy community, which shows a clear, periodic, and unnatural signal, a signal that provides the motive for the cover-up. And we have the whispers from the inside, the technical leaks that paint a consistent and terrifying picture of a manufactured object masquerading as a natural comet. Each piece of evidence on its own is a cause for suspicion. Together, they form an unshakable case, not for a specific conclusion about the comet's origin, but for the undeniable fact of a deliberate and ongoing deception. The story we have been told is not just incomplete, it is a fabrication, a carefully constructed smokescreen designed to conceal a discovery of monumental significance. They did not lose the data, they are hiding it. The government shutdown is not a reason, it is an alibi. The silence is not a technical issue, it is a policy. The mystery is no longer simply about a distant object in space. It is now about the actions of powerful institutions here on Earth, and the vast, hidden architecture of information control that this event has inadvertently exposed to the light. We are left with the ghost of the data, a haunting void where knowledge should be. The questions that remain are no longer just for astronomers, but for all of us. What does it mean to live in a world where a discovery of this magnitude can be so swiftly and effectively buried? What does it mean for our future as a species if our first confirmed contact with a non-human intelligence is handled not as a moment of shared wonder, but as a classified secret to be managed by a faceless, unaccountable authority? The comet itself continues on its path. It is now moving inexorably inward, arcing through the asteroid belt, its trajectory carrying it towards its closest approach to our own planet. In 28 days, Tsuchinshan-ATLAS will reach its perihelion, its nearest point to the Sun, and it will also make its closest pass to Earth. Our own ground-based telescopes, for all their power, will still see only a fuzzy point of light, its secrets veiled by the brilliant glare of its coma. We will not have the 2-meter per pixel clarity that was stolen from us. We will not see the surface, we will not see the source of the anomalous pulse, and we will not see what it may have left behind in the orbit of Mars. We will be left to watch from a distance, armed only with the knowledge of what was seen and the certainty of what is being hidden. The silence from those who know continues. It is a heavy, calculated silence, a silence that speaks of a truth too large, or perhaps too terrifying to be told. And so we will continue to watch the skies, not just for the comet, but for the next crack in the wall of secrecy, waiting for the truth that is surely, inevitably coming.